Step 17, create a development plan for each employee. You need to create a plan, a path for people to improve skills, to grow, and to be the best that they can be. You know, people want to grow, they want to be pushed. Certainly millennials want it, but we all want it. So without focusing proper attention on employee development in a growing company, a top performer can eventually become an average performer or even subpar. If they're not being pushed, they tend to just get into a comfort zone. They tend to coast. So the process for creating an individual needs assessment and then a development plan starts with monitoring performance. You know, in our coaching program, we have something called the gap analysis. What does that mean? Well, we take what we think is important for a particular job, and we created 10 behaviors that are necessary in order for them to succeed at their job. And once you've identified that, then you and the employee look for gaps. So the employee says, I give myself a grade, A, B, and C, 1 through 10, on the top 10 behaviors. And management does the same thing as well. Well, there's no reason for us to spend a lot of time on things that we both see as a 10. But if we both see something as a 2, then we can start working on those areas. We can coach to the gaps. We can train to the gaps. And that's a continual process. It's a big commitment for both sides. You know, the trap is once you start the gap analysis in the coaching program and people come to enjoy it, they come to expect it, the trap is that you've got to continue it. And I'm back to that phrase called congruency. I've talked to 1 million managers who have started something like that. They've done an assessment, they've filled in the gaps, they start coaching and training to it, but they don't finish. They're traveling, some other project came in, and then they stop doing it. And that sends a bad message to the employee itself. So once you identify the gaps and you set the plan, you have to follow up. After you've done that, you need to provide feedback. You got to share your observations and concerns about the progress of how people are doing to shorten that gap. But just not the gaps. And see, that's the other thing that I always wonder. When we get feedback, we tend to give feedback on areas where people fall short in the gap. Hey, I think you're not doing a good job in this following area. But I also think that you should give feedback on what people are doing well, because we can tell them what they're doing poorly and they'll try to adjust for sure. But if you also say, Steve, you're doing a great job in the following area, then they will repeat it. First of all, people like compliments, right? But the second, if you tell them they're doing it right, I promise you they'll keep doing it properly. But if you never tell them they're doing it right, then they may tweak it all the time, and then it becomes a topic of, you should do this better. And people do want feedback. They want feedback, they want help on improvement, not just telling them they did something wrong without showing them how to do it right. And that's also another key. If you're going to tell somebody they didn't do something right, be prepared to show them how to do it right. See, adults learn by imitation and illustration. If you don't show them what excellence means, they have no way to mimic it. They have no way to step up. And because we do want to do better, you've kind of fallen short. You've just said, hey, you didn't do this right, but I'm not going to show you how to do it right. So you leave me in a quandary. Well, what does it mean? How do I improve to make it better? And that's where we struggle. So coaching is important. Coaching is one of those things where we increase the skill level, the awareness of other people. So how to apply a skill is coaching. But what the skill is training. And I say that because most people are confused on the difference between coaching and training. When you say to somebody, do this, 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 and this, that's not coaching. Coaching is where you talk about a topic. You create a plan for that person to close the gap on that particular thing. You set an action plan and then you talk about the skills that they know and how they're going to apply them. And if they do apply them, what's the benefit to them? So there is a difference between tactical and strategic coaching. So tactical coaching, in my mind, focuses on the day-to-day activities and the tactics used to better perform your role. which is really where most of the leaders live. We're doing tactical coaching. Do this. How would you do that? And we're talking about a specific role within our job. Whereas strategic coaching is more big picture. It's how do you think? How do you react? What would you do? So how I react as an owner to a company that maybe has 50 people is substantially different than 500 people. So you've got to make sure that you're spending time both on tactical and strategic. Because, as I said, we're going to spend 40% of our time coaching. And there's two things that I've said that I want to reiterate. Number one, when you coach the gaps, it's easy for us as leaders to say, you should be doing this differently. But you have to do a couple things. One, you have to show them what excellence is. If you're going to tell people what to do differently, then give them what they should be doing. Give them something to mimic. Give them something to model. And therefore, you've helped them. By just saying, hey, that wasn't a good job, you haven't really helped them. The other thing that I want to make sure that I really emphasize is a concept out of our coaching program called Well, Better, Different. And I like this. Why? Because the employee self-diagnoses. So for instance, if you're with an engineer and we're talking about a particular project, I will say things like, what do you think went well? You know, what did you do that was well? And so what they're doing is they're self-analyzing and they're telling you things that they're doing well. That's your opportunity as a leader to, yeah, you did do that well. And you should continue to do that. I really loved how you did that. That's a stroke. And you're also telling them what to do to repeat it. Next one is, what could you have done better? And that's really asking the employee, you probably did something on an ABC scale as a B, but what could you have done differently, right? What could you have done better in order to make that an A? And either they don't know or they tell you. And when they tell you, they're more apt to do it. If they say, I don't know what I could have done to be better, I know that didn't work, but I'm not sure what I could have done, that's a great opportunity for coaching and training. But for you to say, hey, you could have done this better, sometimes people deny it. But if they could tell you what they could have done better, they're more apt to make that change. And then different, right? Well, better, different. Now that the smoke is cleared, what could you have done differently? Once they tell you that, you're going to get a good grasp on self-awareness, but they're going to tell you what they've done differently on the project, what they would have done differently personally. And those are the things that really help you take the game to the next level, because if you said, well, I agree that could have been done differently, how would you have done that differently? And when you're asking them, what would you have done in order to make that different and better, then they're creating that game plan. And it's not your game plan, it's their game plan. And what you find is, with some gentle coaching and training, the things that you ask what could be different turn out to be things that they say in the future that they did well. And that's the magic. And remember the premise of this whole program. It's continuous. It's never ending. And that's why I love Well, Better, Difference, because my wells will hopefully get bigger and bigger. My betters, right, and my difference go back into my well. And that's the magic of this program.
The Road to Excellence, 6 leadership strategies to build a bulletproof business, is on sale now at shop.sandler.com. Contact a local Sandler trainer to learn more about our Organizational Excellence Management Training Program, or click subscribe to get notified about future management tips.